Here's 10 quick and useful tips for Helldivers 2. There's going to be more than 10 of them, but for the sake of efficiency, we'll edit them into 10 sections. This video, I'm going to try to inform you as fast as possible. So without any further ado, let's dive right on into it. Starting with tip number 10. You would better be aware of the 3 C's by now when fighting the bots. Cover is your best friend. Make sure to utilize it to its full potential. You can lob throwable objects over top of it without having to leave it. And we'll cover a little bit more about fortifications in tip number 9. It is my opinion that the manned fortifications are underutilized. Standing your ground and manning a turret doesn't just feel manly, but it is more effective than most people realize. The trick is knowing when to tactically retreat, but knowing that you can stim while you are on these emplacements means that you can fight off the enemy for longer. And effectively fighting the enemies of managed democracy is what tip number 8 is all about. This tip comes right out of a Super Earth propaganda poster. When between a rock and a hard place, be the hard place, Helldiver. Don't forget that there is nothing preventing you from overcoming a difficult situation other than running out of ammunition and stratagems. But when you do, you can always give your life for liberty. And a new Helldiver can replace you with fresh supplies. But if you're running low on reinforcements, tip number 7 can help you recover ammunition without losing any of that budget. You can leave the game and come back for more ammunition. This trick obviously only works if you have friends in the match, but tip number 6 will prevent you from losing those friends. Don't get on Pelican 1 before your teammates are ready. I don't know who still needs to hear this, but I'm going to assume most of you do not, so we'll move right on into tip number 5. Planetary hazards can be used to your advantage. The obvious one is fire tornadoes, but one that is more subtle is the sandstorm. You can use them to your advantage and lose your tail. If you can't lose them, you can always use tip number 4 to deal with them. Large, heavily armored enemies can seem terrifying. Bile Titans are one of those horrifying opponents, and they are fast enough to keep up with you. Jumping underneath them can give you the few seconds that you need to call down your stratagem and finish them off. And in a similar fashion, you can dive on top of tanks to crawl over to their other side. However, the best way to deal with them is to avoid them, and tip number 3 will help you do that. Some objectives trigger the enemies to assault your position. The SEAF artillery is one of them. Make sure that you get all the shells you want loaded in position before you turn on the emplacement. And for the love of all that is super, do not forget to calibrate it once you've loaded it. Anyways, tip number 2 is another good way to avoid enemies, chargers specifically. We've all seen their carcasses littered around the battlefield, but now they're utilizing stealth to deploy sneak attacks against us. Make sure that you pay close attention because they have begun to burrow into the ground, and what you may have thought was an unalive bug might make you its next meal. Now you'll want to pay close attention to tip number 1. It goes without saying that you'll want to move as a coordinated unit, so make sure to keep an eye on the resupply stratagem. Call it in after engagements to top off everyone's carrying capacity, but be careful calling it in before engagements. When hell pods hit the ground, they will alert the enemy to your position. Thanks for watching.